This lesson's called How to Do More Work Every Day. It's an introduction to time blocking, which is a part of daily planning I consider crucial if you're going to become more productive. Before I figured out that making a detailed plan for every workday worked for me, I spent a lot of time looking at my lengthy to-do list and not deciding what to do next. Then, if I actually did something, I'd do the easiest or most enjoyable thing on the list. Then I'd cross it off and puff out my chest proudly and be so happy. And meanwhile, the list of all the things I didn't do grew and grew and grew and grew. And yeah, I got everything I was paid to write finished. I always did that. But I was always in a state of perpetual crisis. I was reacting rather than acting. I was scrambling to barely make every deadline. So for years, my list grew and grew and grew and grew. And one day it became pretty obvious that the list didn't work anymore. So I went out and I started reading about productivity and personal productivity. And I found that there was not much that everybody agreed on, but there was one thing. And that is a plan is vital and a to-do list isn't a plan. So here's my advice to you, especially if you're prone to procrastination like me. Make a plan tonight and detail how you're going to spend every 30 minutes segment of tomorrow. In lesson 4, I'll show you a couple ways I've planned my work days, but for now, just know this. My productivity soared when I knew exactly what I needed to do tomorrow, along with the blocks of time for each individual task. Today, when I walk in the office in the morning, I know exactly what I'm going to do and how long I'm going to do it for. I use a two-prong approach to keep track of all this. It's part digital and part analog. Now, the backbone of this system is Fantastical, which is an application, a calendar application I use instead of macOS Calendar. You can use macOS Calendar if it pleases you. It doesn't really matter that much what you use, but you should use one. And I'll tell you more about that in lesson 5. However, I'm telling you now because it's what I use to store all my meetings, appointments, travel. Anything that's time or date related goes on the calendar. That's the digital side, and it's awesome. And while I could use Fantastical or Apple's calendar to plan my workday in half-hour chunks, adding all those 30-minute tasks every day makes my calendar so crowded it's difficult to use. Plus, I have a small collection of fountain pens. Not expensive fountain pens, but I like fountain pens, the kinds with nibs that you fill with ink. I'm an old school writer, and I use them to fill out my plan for tomorrow, which looks like that. Finally, if I had a plan and I kept it somewhere on my Mac as a Word document or whatever, I'd surely hide it or close out of it or put it out of sight, and out of sight is out of mind. Keeping this handwritten plan on my desk, right where I can see it and modify it, all day long really works for me. So my editor for the book, the ebook of Working Smarter for Mac Users, Brian Chaffin, told me that this next part is so super important I should set it in bold and italic type in the ebook. And that's what I did. And it's in huge letters on the screen right now. That's what works for me. Now, if you prefer an all digital, all analog, or any combination of the two, that's excellent. The important part is that you make a plan and then use it. I didn't become truly productive until I got in the habit of blocking out my next day's work plan the night before and then following it carefully the next day. These days, I rarely go to bed before I write tomorrow's plan. As I said, I write mine longhand on a worksheet I created, which you'll hear more about in lesson 4, but that's just the way I like to do it. It's my personal preference. So use my free worksheet. Use a legal pad. Use a day planner, a notebook, the back of a paper bag, or whatever. Handwritten, typed into your Mac, any program, whatever. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you make a plan. So figure out what your most important tasks are, how long they're going to take, and then put them down on paper or on screen for tomorrow. Okay? The key is to commit it to paper and electrons and then review it throughout the day. And trust me, if you think you're going to be able to do this in your head, not going to work. Okay, so give your workday some serious thought and then break it into chunks. Like I said, I break mine into 30-minute chunks. Your chunks don't have to be 30 minutes. That's my preference. Partly because my worksheet has enough room to do 2 things in an hour, and partly because a lot of things I do are 25, 30-minute things. And mostly because at my age I need to get up and stretch every 30 minutes or so. So 30 minutes isn't etched in stone. It's up to you. 30 minutes is what I use. If scheduling tasks in an hour chunk works for you, do it. If half-day chunks work for you, well, I don't know if that'll work, but try it. 15-minute, half-hour chunks, 25 minutes so you can do Pomodoros, whatever. What's important is that you figure out what works for you and then do it every day. In lesson 3, we're going to look at why eating a frog every morning can be a good thing. And I'm going to gently introduce you to the concept of most important tasks.